From a young age, I was captivated by the idea of flying. While other kids played with toy cars or dreamed of being athletes, I imagined soaring through the clouds free from the ground. Growing up, my family wasn't wealthy, so I worked hard to pursue my dream of becoming a pilot. Despite the challenges, that dream fueled every decision I made. As I got older, I took on any job I could find to save for flight school, whether it was late shifts at the diner or mowing lawns. When I finally earned my pilot's license, all that hard work paid off. Soon after, I began flying for the Air National Guard. However, after my time with the Guard ended, I faced a hiring freeze with the major airlines, leaving me working for a smaller regional airline. Through it all, Amita, my wife, was my constant. Amy came from an even poorer background than I did, but we stuck together from third grade on. I told her in junior high that I'd be a pilot, and she said, "Take me with you." I promised, and we got married as soon as we could. Amy was nearly 6 feet tall, slender, with freckles, big ears, and a large nose. To me, she was the most beautiful bride. She followed me everywhere during my career, making our home cozy no matter where we were. She was great at saving money, haggling for everything we needed, though she had a weakness for postcards, which she collected from every place we went. We bought a fixer-upper house with our savings and my modest salary of just over $25,000 as a regional airline pilot. I didn't mind. I had Amy and the chance to fly every day. She found work with a real estate developer, and we worked together to make ends meet. Life was good, despite the slow airline hiring market. We made the best of every moment, enjoying each other and the life we built. Every morning, Jose, our head mechanic, gave me a ride to work. He helped me a lot with my truck, and we had rebuilt almost every part of it together. Jose had escaped Cuba with his girlfriend, now wife Maria, at 18, and he was proud of his big family, especially his kids. One morning, I rode with Jose and his youngest son, Angelo, a high school freshman. I greeted them, buckled in, and mentioned needing to stop by Amy's workplace to drop off her cell phone, which she had forgotten. Angelo, like most teens, was listening to music on his headphones, but noticed the phone in my hand. Curious, he asked to see it. I tossed him the phone, and soon after, he commented, "Someone's gonna get lucky today," showing me a message on Amy's screen. The message read, "Protein lunch day 2. Confused, I asked what it meant, and Angelo showed me more texts between Amy and a man named Troy, her boss. They were clearly having an affair. The shock hit me hard. I felt sick and asked Jose to take me home immediately. Angelo forwarded the messages to me, and I confirmed the sender was Troy Kingston, Amy's boss at King One Developers. It felt like a terrible cliche, my wife having an affair with her boss. Jose, noticing my distress, offered to take me to the doctor, but I declined. I just needed to get home. Angelo continued reading the messages aloud, each one making me feel worse. When we finally arrived home, I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. As I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, I remembered how Amy and I had remodeled that bathroom together. Those memories only deepened the hurt I was feeling. Maybe Amy's cheating, I thought, feeling uneasy. Troy Kingston, her boss, was in his 50s, nearly 20 years older than us. He fit the typical real estate developer stereotype, tall, trim, tanned, with dyed hair and plugs to hide his bald spots. He had a big voice and loved cracking jokes, both clean and crude. Trying to calm myself, I hoped it was just one of his jokes. I decided to stop by Amy's office, using the excuse of taking her to lunch, and figure out what was going on. It was almost 11:30 a.m., and I hurried to her office. At King One Developers, I told the receptionist I needed to return Amy's phone. After making a few calls, she said Amy wasn't available. I explained I already had her number since I was holding her phone. The receptionist then mentioned she saw Amy leave with Mr. Kingston and that they often had lunch at his house or the club. Ignoring the knot in my stomach, I said I'd find her later. I drove to Troy's house, which I'd been to once for a Christmas party. It was a big, flashy mansion with an Olympic pool and a red Hummer H2 parked outside, indicating they were inside. The front door was unlocked, so I walked in and heard noise from the upstairs bedroom. With my heart racing, I dialed Amy's phone. From behind the door, I heard it ringing, muffled inside the bedroom. I stepped back, bracing for what might come next. "Troy Kingston," a voice answered. "Hey, Troy," I said through Amy's phone. "She left her phone at home. The office said she's with you. Can you tell me where you are so I can bring it to her? Better yet, let me talk to Amy." "Kevin, we're heading back to the office from the club," Troy replied. "We just finished a lunch meeting with a client and stopped by my house to grab some paperwork. Amy's in the restroom." Standing just outside the bedroom, I listened as Troy lied. I cracked the door open and saw him shout toward the bathroom, "Amy, your husband's calling." Amy, wrapped in a towel, casually sat on the bed. The way they acted around each other made it clear this wasn't new. "Hey, Kevin," Amy said, taking the phone from Troy. She flirted with him as she spoke to me, pretending nothing was wrong. "Thanks for finding my phone. I've been looking everywhere for it." I pushed the door open and stepped into the room. They froze. "Well, Amy," I said, pointing at her, "I don't think you'll find your phone between Troy's legs." Troy bolted into the bathroom, slamming the door. Amy stayed on the bed. "Get dressed," I said. "We need to talk." "No," Amy replied calmly. "I'm not going anywhere with you. I like living this way." I was shocked. "You enjoy being a cheating liar?" "I'm sorry you found out this way, Kevin," she said, unfazed. "But I want a better life than what you can give me. Troy can provide that now, not in a few years like you might." "This is what you're trading our marriage for?" I asked, gesturing around the room. "I'm not throwing anything away," Amy said, still calm. "I followed you for 15 years, living like a pauper, but I deserve better now. I'm tired of clipping coupons and shopping for sales. I want more, and Troy can give it to me. I ask you to respect my decision." I was speechless. "Respect what, Amy? You cheating and Troy hiding in the bathroom?" She just shrugged. The room felt suffocating. I tossed the phone back to her and walked out, flipping her off as I left. "You two deserve each other. I have flights tomorrow. Get out of my house." For the rest of the month, I was in a daze. They say grief has 7 stages, but I was stuck in shock and denial for 2 weeks. How could Amy do this? Had I missed the signs? As a professional, I was trained to notice small details before they became big issues, yet I completely lost awareness in my own life. Every morning, I woke up expecting to see Amy, and then the painful memories would hit, starting the cycle all over again. By the 3rd week, the emotional pain set in, worse than any physical injury. Amy had shattered my heart, and the grief was unbearable. Jose and his wife Maria were my lifeline. They were the only ones I confided in, and they were just as stunned. Leaving a spouse was incomprehensible to them. Jose had taken a bullet during their escape from Cuba, and Maria had nursed him on a raft until they were rescued. They both worked tirelessly to build a life in America while raising 6 children. Their love and loyalty were unwavering. At the end of the month, anger hit when the bank called. I was overdrawn. Amy had emptied all our accounts. I couldn't get a new line of credit, and the bank refused to help, as Troy Kingston was a big client. To top it off, a man served me divorce papers by my truck. Realizing I was in serious trouble, I researched the situation. Amy was claiming the repairs on my old truck were equal to her new Camry, and she had cashed out all our assets. She offered me the house with an inflated appraisal, leaving me 10 days to avoid foreclosure. Jose's son, a law student, reviewed the papers with his professor. He warned me I was at a disadvantage. Amy had powerful lawyers thanks to her new relationship. I would lose the legal battle. Needing money fast, I sold my truck for $7,000, which helped me stave off foreclosure and cover some bills. For the next year, when I wasn't flying, I worked with Maria's cleaning crews and biked everywhere to save money. I lived extremely frugally, surviving mostly on the home-cooked meals Jose and Maria insisted I eat. Maria tried setting me up with Latina women, but I couldn't even afford a soda, let alone a date. By the start of my 2nd year, my divorce was behind me, and I was starting to get ahead. I even took some time off to work on the house. One day I found boxes of Amy's old postcards. My first thought was to burn them for warmth. Instead, I rode my bike to the library and emailed Amy about the postcards. She replied within an hour. "The postcards are where I've been, not where I'm going. Do what you want with them." I printed both emails for my records and went home. That night, I built a big fire and roasted marshmallows while watching those cards burn. For the first time, I slept peacefully and woke up without thinking about Amy. Over 2 years had passed since I last saw Amy. One Friday night, while taxiing onto the runway, a flight attendant told me about an unruly passenger who wouldn't turn off his phone. I offered to handle it, expecting the usual resolution: a stern word and compliance. To my surprise, the passenger was Troy Kingston, drunk and shouting on his phone. Even more shocking was his companion, my ex-wife Amy, barely recognizable. She was covered in jewelry, with bleached blonde hair, a nose job, plumped lips, and plastic surgery everywhere. I realized where all the money had gone. "Good thing Amy didn't waste it," I muttered. Switching to professional mode, I approached Troy. "Mr. Kingston, You need to turn off your phone for the safety of the flight. Troy snapped. Back off, flyboy. I'm closing a deal worth more than you and this airline. I turned to Amy, asking her to reason with him. She stared out the window, ignoring me. Sighing, I returned to the cockpit and announced over the intercom, "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be returning to the terminal briefly. Thank you for your patience." My first officer had already taken us back to the gate where airport security was waiting. Troy Kingston's day took a turn when 3 loud airport police officers, followed by a Homeland Security agent, boarded the plane. Troy was let off in handcuffs, facing charges for interfering with the crew and endangering the aircraft. Federal offenses since we were on the runway. The DHS officer told me Troy would spend the weekend in a holding cell, as federal courts don't operate on weekends, and he'd also be placed on the no-fly list for 90 days. To add insult to injury, Troy was billed for the fuel, landing time, and ground crew expenses. Well, couldn't happen to a nicer guy, I thought as we taxied back out. Later, I was sitting at Jose and Maria's kitchen table, celebrating their daughter starting medical school. Jose, proud of her, beamed. "She's going to be a rocket surgeon." I smiled, declining more drinks. Seeing their happiness reminded me of what I had lost with Amy. "Not like that, worthless Amy," Maria said bluntly. "Captain, let me find you a nice Latina. I'll treat you good." I smirked. Maria, with her thick accent, was always trying to set me up. "I'm a bit hesitant after last time," I joked. Maria mumbled something to Jose in Spanish. "Captain, you're better off without her." No argument. I shrugged. Scooting closer, Maria added, "Amy didn't know what she had. Her life isn't so happy now." Curious, I asked, "Come on, Maria, what do you know?" Maria, with her network of cleaners and housekeepers, had the best gossip around, rivaling any intelligence agency. Maria leaned in and whispered, "My girls say Amy's not doing well. The other wives call her lemon pie because they're afraid she'll steal their husbands. Amy throws parties, but no wives show up. Just some husbands who look at her like she's a piece of meat, which makes her and Mr. Kingston mad. So, no more parties." I tried not to laugh. Maria continued, "Amy's upset because Kingston won't marry her. He doesn't give her much money and he doesn't trust her. He checks her phone and hired a private detective to watch her. When Amy found out, she was furious." I poured a drink. "Well, Maria, what did you expect? There's no trust between thieves. They can enjoy living in constant suspicion." Maria wasn't finished. "I send older ladies to clean for Mr. Kingston. He's always trying to touch the younger ones, but Amy blames the girls and complains that they treat him badly. I know it's not true." "If Amy can't keep him happy, why blame the staff?" I said sarcastically. "No one wants to work there anyway. He never tips." Maria laughed, and Jose jumped in to change the subject. "Captain, we're going golfing tomorrow. I won a round at 9 Rivers and a raffle." "Golf? You play, Jose?" I asked, surprised. Jose nodded. "When we came to America, Maria noticed successful people play golf, so she bought me clubs on sale and made me take lessons, even the kids. But she never lets me rent a golf cart." Maria gave him a stern look. "We're saving for the kids' college. God gave you legs. Use them." Jose raised his hands in mock surrender, but smiled, taking Maria's hand. I finished my drink, wished them good night, and headed home. The next day, Jose brought his son's golf clubs for me to use, as I had sold mine after the divorce for extra cash. It was the first time in a while that I wasn't flying, working, or doing house chores, and I was having a great time. However, my mood soured when I saw a large photo of Troy Kingston and Amy hanging in the clubhouse. Troy, a board member of 9 Rivers Country Club, was pictured with Amy at an event. Sensing my frustration, Jose noticed the photo too. "Captain," Jose said, "keep an eye on the entrance and let me know if anyone's coming." Confused, I stood guard for a few minutes. Finally, Jose said, "All clear. Let's go." When I turned around, I saw he had drawn a handlebar mustache, devil horns, and crooked teeth on Troy's picture. And he didn't spare Amy either, giving her a big nose and huge ears. "What are you, 12? I laughed, but my mood had lifted. "Let's go play golf," Jose grinned. We were having a blast. At the 7th hole, we noticed an elderly man ahead taking a shot. Suddenly, he collapsed, clutching his chest. Jose and I dropped our bags and ran to help while his wife frantically tried to call for help. The man wasn't breathing. "Jose, start CPR," I ordered, beginning chest compressions. "Call emergency," I shouted to the woman. "I don't have a signal," she screamed, panicking. Neither Jose nor I had cell coverage either. "You have to run to the clubhouse," I yelled at her. She hesitated but finally ran off. Jose and I continued CPR, but after 10 exhausting minutes, we were struggling. Just as I was about to give mouth to mouth, an electric golf cart zoomed up, nearly running over my foot. The girl driving the beverage cart jumped out, grabbed a small hard case, and knelt beside me. Inside was a portable defibrillator, like the ones in airports. "Stand back," she said, ripping open the man's shirt and attaching the sensors. "Jose, get help," she ordered. Jose sped off in the cart while she followed the defibrillator's instructions and pressed the shock button. The man's chest jolted, and his eyes fluttered open. "He's breathing, but he needs medical help fast," she said. I wiped my forehead and glanced at her. A young, slender woman with a name tag that read, Lords. Just then, a Ford F-250 truck pulled up, driven by Jose. "Recognize your old truck, Captain?" he joked. "The golf cart died." We loaded the man into the truck, Lords riding up front, and I took the driver's seat. As we tore across the golf course, Lords directed me to a path, but I insisted on my own route, familiar from countless flights overhead. Lords was on the phone with the hospital, rattling off medical jargon. I quipped, "Not bad for a drink cart, girl." She shot back, "I'm a nurse, dumbass." I could only manage, "Oh," as we screeched into the emergency entrance, where doctors were waiting. For a week, Jose and I were airport heroes. But soon after, I got a letter from the Nine Rivers Country Club, billing me $247.88 for course damages. They threatened legal action if I didn't pay, but I just laughed and tossed it in the trash. It's hard to get something from nothing, I thought. I never learned if the man recovered, but he was airlifted out soon after stabilizing. I tried calling Lords, only to find she no longer worked at the club. After a week of searching, I asked Maria for help, and within 15 minutes, she had all of Lords' info, from her phone number to her shoe size, thanks to her network of Latina women. Maria started talking about Lords as if she were giving a formal report. Lords is 26 years old, the only daughter of her father, an immigrant laborer she cared for until he passed away. Her mother died when Lords was a child. She's never been married, recently got her nursing degree, but hasn't taken the exam yet, and works the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift at Mercy Nursing Home. She rents a room, isn't seeing anyone, and loves vanilla ice cream with sprinkles. "That's it," Maria teased with a grin. "No birthmarks, no warrants." She gave me a smug look. "Lords is a good girl. She goes to Mass every Sunday at St. Paul's. Want me to set you two up?" She reached into her pocket for her phone. No, Maria," I jumped up. "Thanks for the phone and Lord's address. I'll take it from here." I heard Maria laughing as I left her house. The next day, Lords was sitting on her front steps when I approached with flowers. She smiled when she saw the surprise on my face. "Why'd you wait so long, Kevin?" How did you know I was coming?" I stammered. "The Latina Women's Network works both ways, Kevin." Lords laughed as she stood, took the flowers, and headed up the stairs. "You haven't had a chance. Stay here while I put these in water." Lords was easy to talk to. She shared how she balanced school, nursing homework, and a job delivering drinks at the Nine Rivers Country Club until recently. "Kevin," Lords began, "I had a lot of debt from loans and tuition. My nursing home job covers rent and living expenses. The good money from serving drinks helped me pay off the debt, save for the nursing exam prep, and cover the testing fees." "What happened to the Nine Rivers job?" I asked. Lords wrinkled her nose. "After that little monster truck ride, the board fired me. They said I left early. I know it was that board member, Troy Kingston. He's been trying to sleep with me since I started there. Now he entertains his secretary every Wednesday during lunch." Lords shuddered. I wasn't shocked Lords knew about my situation and marriage. The Latina Women's Network circulated a lot of gossip. Some of it was exaggerated, and much of it was wrong, as I'd found out. "You know, Kevin," Lords said, "most of the gossip says your wife left because she switched teams. Some think it's because you were gay." Suppressing a laugh, I asked, "Where did that come from?" Lords looked slightly embarrassed. "Some girls on the cleaning crew were more than interested in helping you through your grief. The skirts got shorter and the blouses lower. You never reacted, so they figured you must be gay." I laughed. "You must mean Anita and Orlando. There's no way I missed their attempts to cheer me up." I slapped my knee. "Lords, tell them I appreciate it, but I have a strict rule. How to put this? I don't eat where I trailed off, grinning. Lords chuckled. "Good, I'm glad you noticed. Did your ex-wife not have that rule about work?" "To be blunt," I replied, "Amy can eat crap." I wanted to see more of Lords. "Kevin, I'm not a prude, but I'm not much to look at," Lords said. "Can we meet tomorrow?" I'm working on the house tomorrow, having trouble with the door hinge, I said. Maybe you made the mortise holes too shallow. How did you adjust the reveal? She asked. Morty, what? I was confused. Lourdes rolled her eyes. Oh, Kevin, just give me your address. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Lourdes grew up around her dad, a laborer and handyman. What she knew about home repair rivaled the crew from this old house. If she didn't know something, she'd bring a retired craftsman from the nursing home to teach us. We spent every spare moment together, growing closer each time. But it wasn't the closeness I had expected. The night went great, and the morning even better. I'd been thinking about something for a while. Lourdes, will you move in with me? I asked. Lourdes raised an eyebrow. Kevin, I'm not the type of girl who moves in after one good night. Lourdes, I want you in my bed every night, I said, admiring her. But it's also practical. It'd be cheaper to live together than apart. You'll save on rent and reach your goals faster, passing the nursing exam and all that. I'm not a freeloader, Kevin. I'm not trading myself for a place to stay, she said, crossing her arms. I always pay my way. You'll still pay, I teased, grabbing her towel. You can keep fixing up the house for rent. Honestly, I should be paying you for everything you've done. I get more out of this deal. Lourdes threw the towel back and sat on the bed, thinking. I held my breath, waiting. Finally, she turned and said, Kevin, do you think your friend Jose will lend us his truck to move my stuff on Friday? We'd been together over 6 months now. The house had never been in better shape, and I was happy. I still worked, cleaning houses and logging as many flight hours as the FAA allowed, but Lourdes had changed my life. I wanted to propose, but knew she wanted to get her nursing license and establish her career before settling down. The housing market crash hit our town hard, and no company felt it more than King One Developers, where Troy Kingston worked. Within a week, the company collapsed like a house of cards. The bank pulled several loans, and Troy's entire operation fell apart. Federal regulators started investigating, and it turned out Troy had mixed funds, mortgaged properties he didn't even own, and was over-leveraged in real estate. He didn't even have enough money to file for bankruptcy. Troy, facing overwhelming challenges, made a tragic decision one night. He drove into his garage and never came out. I felt sorry for the financial mess he left behind for others, but not for him. Oddly, I didn't even think about how this would affect my ex-wife Amy. She was in my past, and I was focused on my future with Lourdes. A few weeks later, as I walked home from the bus stop, I saw a figure sitting on my porch steps. It was dusk, but even in the dim light, I could tell who it was. Hi, Amy, I said, standing over her. Hi, Kevin, she replied, looking up at me but not moving from the steps. Amy, I'd love to say it's good to see you, but that would be a lie. I've had a long day and just want to get inside. Amy didn't budge. Why are you walking, Kevin? Where's your truck? You're sitting on it, I said dryly. Amy looked around, confused. Oh, you sold it for the house. I get it, but why, Kevin? You loved that truck. I loved a lot of things back then, Amy, I said coldly. You learn to live without things when you have to. That truck never let me down, unlike other things, and I still miss that truck to this day. What about me, Kevin? Do you ever miss me? Amy asked softly. Of course, Amy, I said sarcastically. I miss you with every bullet. Amy sighed, but I kept going. Besides, how could I miss you? You're still here. Kevin, please, can we talk? I just got out of the hospital 2 weeks ago, she pleaded. I'm sorry to hear that, and I wish you a speedy recovery, I replied indifferently. But I don't see how your health concerns me anymore. You made it clear years ago that I wasn't enough for you. Kevin, please, Troy's dead. That night, I almost died too. Yeah, I heard. His little stunt in the garage nearly took you with him, I said. I guess those Hummers really are bad for the environment. Maybe you should have convinced Troy to go hybrid. That's not funny, Kevin. I'm not trying to be funny, Amy, I said, rubbing my chin. I'm tired. Maybe we should just go our separate ways. Kevin, please, she begged. Let's just go inside for a few minutes. I need to talk to you. I sighed and motioned toward the door. As Amy struggled to stand, I noticed how tall she still was, but her face had changed. It wasn't just the plastic surgery, something else was off. In the fading light, I saw she was using a cane, leaning heavily on it. I quietly picked up her gym bag as she climbed the steps. Opening the door, I thought, this is going to be one hell of a conversation. Amy and I sat at the dining room table. Under the light, I saw how different her face was. One side was frozen, with her eyelid drooping, and the corner of her mouth pulled down. The size of her lips only made the unevenness worse. She kept dabbing away a little saliva with a handkerchief. "It was a stroke, Kevin," Amy began. "Carbon monoxide poisoning did it. I was lucky the maid came early or I would have died. One side of my body is weak, and my short-term memory's shot. It gets worse when I'm tired." "I'm sorry to hear that, Amy. How are you doing now?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Kevin, that's why I'm here. I need money." I nearly choked on my coffee, sputtering it onto the table. It took a few coughs to clear my throat before I could clean up the mess. "You've got to be kidding me. I'm sorry for your situation, but I'm barely getting by myself, and you know why." Amy avoided my gaze, looking down. "Besides," I continued, "didn't you have assets from your time with Troy? Last time I saw you, you were decked out in more jewelry than a rapper." Amy wiped the corner of her mouth again. "It's all gone, Kevin. Troy pawned everything trying to keep the creditors off him before the collapse. What little was left got seized by bankruptcy attorneys. After Troy's self-destruction, the cops turned the house into a crime scene. I just got back in last week and only managed to grab this gym bag of clothes." I stared at her, emotions I thought were buried threatening to surface. "What about social services or disability?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "I applied, but most programs take 90 days to review, and they already told me my injuries don't qualify for full disability, so I won't get much help," Amy explained. "And none of Troy's old friends are willing to help you?" Amy let out a bitter laugh. "No, not anymore. None of them want me around. They're scared I'll hit on their husbands for money. Honestly, I can't blame them. After the divorce, I burned a lot of bridges, and most of our mutual friends sided with you." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "All right, Amy, sell the Camry. It's still worth something." "The Camry was never mine," Amy said, her voice shaking. "Troy bought it for me, but the title was in King One developer's name. The bank took it too." A surge of anger welled up. "Amy, you got that car barely 4 months after we moved here. You started seeing Troy before the ink on the mortgage was even dry." "Kevin," Amy turned away. "Troy and I didn't get together until 6 months after I started working for him." I couldn't help myself. "Oh, my mistake. I didn't mean to suggest your virtue was compromised by waiting an extra 2 months to jump into bed." "Kevin, don't you think I know I messed up? This is hard for me too. I never wanted us to end up like this," Amy said, looking at my distant expression. "Amy, do you really want to dive into this?" "Yeah, Kevin, why not?" I waved my hand. "They say that truth sets you free. Go ahead, try." "It's not about trying, Kevin. I just want you to know that none of this was your fault. It was all me. I got swept up in it. You didn't do anything wrong. At first, it was great. When I started at King One Developers, I was treated like royalty. Troy always picked up the tab. For once, I didn't have to worry about prices or counting change. He gave me attention, and suddenly I was surrounded by important people. They made me feel like I was somebody." "You were somebody, Amy. You were my wife, my partner since we were kids. Wasn't that enough?" "I see that now, Kevin. I just wish I'd realized it then. It all started when you left for that 3-day charter flight. Troy invited me to a political fundraising dinner, $2,500 a plate. My meal alone could have covered 2 months of our mortgage." "Did you get chicken or fish?" I asked, smirking. "Kevin, stop. I'm being serious," Amy sighed. "Troy had been sweet for weeks, but this was different. He bought me a $2,000 evening gown, and he didn't even flinch at the price. Everyone thought I was his girlfriend and treated me like a VIP. We sat with a former vice president. I got swept up in the glamour, the power. I felt like I was on top of the world. By the end of the night, we ended up in the parking lot, having fun in his Hummer. The valet must have gotten quite a tip," I said sarcastically. "Kevin, please, it wasn't like that." "What do you call it, Amy? Classy? Having fun in a parking lot sounds more like something you'd see on a street corner. Did you crack open the moonroof to make it more romantic?" Amy blushed, but pressed on. "I felt so guilty the next day, terrified you'd find out. When you came home, I stuck to you like glue to make up for what happened with Troy." "Wow, Amy. And here I thought you were just showing gratitude to all the plumbers." "Kevin, I promised it wouldn't happen again. I swore I'd be the best wife. But Troy kept apologizing, saying we'd had too much to drink, that it was a mistake. He didn't want to lose me as an employee over one slip-up. He was so smooth, and I fell for it. A week later, I went with him and some other executives to the coast for a big project. He chartered a private jet. It was so exciting. On the way back, Troy landed a multi-million-dollar deal. There was celebrating, drinks, hugs, and then... We ended up in the plane's bathroom. I couldn't help myself. Amy, I see all that glamour really weakened your resolve, I said coldly. Kevin, I'm not proud of what I did. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you how it happened. After that trip, I gave in and enjoyed the lifestyle. Gambling, fine dining, jewelry. At first, only when you were away. But then it became lunches and midday rendezvous. Eventually, I started resenting you, feeling like our life wasn't enough. That's when I realized I'd put our marriage at risk. The saddest part is, it wasn't even Troy's money. It was King One Developers' corporate funds. Troy didn't have any real money of his own. Most of his paycheck went to his ex-wives. Even his Hummer was leased. The house, the Rolex, almost everything was in the company's name. Amy looked at me. So that's my sad, pathetic story, Kevin. Do you have any questions? Just one or two, Amy. I folded my hands on the table. If you had the life you wanted, why didn't you divorce me right away? Why drag it out for a year and a half, cheating in secret? What was so thrilling about balancing life between Prince Troy's wealth and your pauper husband? Amy looked away. Kevin, at first, it was because I didn't want to hurt you. We've been together since elementary school. You were my best friend. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that it would end soon. You'd never find out, and we'd still live happily ever after. But it became harder to let go. All these new things made me feel like royalty. For the first time, I wasn't standing outside, looking in. I kept delaying ending things with Troy. I was like a fly drowning in honey. She wiped the saliva from the corner of her mouth again. When you found me in Troy's bedroom, I panicked. I knew there was no going back, that you'd never forgive me. But at that point, half a life with Troy seemed better than nothing. How about choosing the truth, Amy? I said sarcastically. We might have worked things out if you'd come to me after the first time. Kevin, believe it or not, I was planning to end it in 2 days. Even if you hadn't caught us, I was going to quit my job and leave Troy. That Friday, cold turkey. I was ready to dedicate myself to you, to our marriage. I'd already printed and signed my resignation letter. It was sitting in my desk drawer. Nice try, Amy. Makes me regret barging in on you and Troy. 2 more days and none of this would have happened. I was such a fool, I said, my voice dripping with irony. Let me guess, you don't have that letter with you, do you? No, Kevin, I can't prove it, but it's true. After I moved in with Troy, I got bored. Everything revolved around him. I started having more fun on my own. All right, Amy, here's a classic question. Was Troy better in bed than me? I watched her hesitate, searching for an answer. If I wanted someone to lie to me, I'd pay for it. So don't lie. Just tell me the truth. Amy sighed. Kevin, you were my first. And before Troy, you were the only one. We were always good together. But Troy, well, he was older and more experienced. He had been with a lot of women. Over time, I felt indebted to him for everything he gave me. So, payment for services rendered? I asked. I wasn't a promiscuous or anything, if that's what you're implying, Amy said, trying to smile. What do you call someone who exchanges favors for goods or services? I asked. That was different, she replied stiffly. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I said. Whatever, Kevin, but no, we never did it in our house or our bed, Amy exclaimed. Never? Not even once? I pressed. No, Kevin. Troy wanted to, but for me, it wasn't about the affair or even Troy or you. It was about the lifestyle. For the first time, I was living first class. I thought I was rising above everything. Amy glanced around the room. I didn't want to go back to this, I continued. So Troy didn't mind sharing you for a year and a half while you were cheating on me. Was he as generous with others after you moved in? Troy was very possessive, Kevin. He wanted me to cut you off after we started, but I ignored him. I never had a relationship with both of you on the same day. Troy loved parading me around, but hated it when I talked to other men. The irony is, he had women all over the place, girlfriends, escorts. When he traveled, he'd invite call girls. But when it came to other women, he liked it to be just us. Once I gave in with his second wife. They were still on good terms. But I didn't enjoy it. She was like a caricature. A trophy wife, bleach blonde and empty-headed. I couldn't resist. So, what exactly was the difference between you two? Touch? Feel? Amy wrinkled her nose. As sad as it sounds back then, I thought she had it all. The money, the looks, the front row seat to everything I wanted. I used to laugh at people like that. Then I became one of them. Plastic and hollow. I smirked. Did I pay for all of Barbie's makeup, or did Troy cover the silicone? Amy wrinkled her nose again. Kevin, it wasn't your money. Troy hid the surgery costs in some project budget. I'm sure the auditors will want it back. You've always been a good negotiator, Amy. Maybe you can use some of those bedroom tricks Troy taught you to settle with them. Kevin, I can't live like this anymore. I just want to disappear. I shook my head. Amy, if you want to go out like Troy did, I can't help you. I have a garage, but no car. Sorry. I shouldn't have kept making cheap jokes about Amy. It felt like kicking someone when they were down, but I couldn't stop. Deep anger kept bubbling up. I thought I was over her, but was I? They say love and hate are two sides of the same coin. I couldn't sort out what I was feeling, whether it was disgust at the person Amy had become or anger at what she had done to me, to us, to our relationship. Kevin, Amy said, I know a lot has happened, but before all this, we were always there for each other. I really need you now. We've been together most of our lives, and we've both grown and changed. Can't we try to keep what we had? I stood up. Amy, I'd rather chew tinfoil and shave my head with a cheese grater. I finished my now cold coffee and added, I don't know who you are anymore, and I just don't trust you. How do I know you haven't stashed away a bunch of money or jewelry? Maybe you're just waiting for everything to blow over so you can laugh at me again and leave me with nothing. Amy slumped in her chair, her hope fading. I'll never leave you again. Please, I need your help. I'm sorry, Amy. I can't take that risk anymore. It's too much. Can't or won't? She asked quietly. What's the difference? I replied. Just then, the door opened and Lourdes walked in. She was wearing her nursing uniform, floral and practical, just back from her afternoon shift. Oh, hi, Lourdes said, taking in the scene. She walked over to Amy, leaned slightly, and extended her hand. I'm Lourdes. And you are? With some effort, Amy raised her hand to shake. I'm Amy. Lourdes froze for a second, then recovered, eyeing Amy's cane, limp arm and the look of her face. Bell's palsy? Lourdes asked, pointing to Amy's face. I beg your pardon? Amy replied. Bell's palsy, Lourdes said professionally. It damages the nerve that controls the facial muscles, causing paralysis, common with herpes. I don't have herpes, Amy snapped, then softened. But I can see why you'd think that after what I did to Kevin. I had a stroke. Amy went on to tell Lourdes the full story. When she finished, Lourdes asked to speak to me in the kitchen. Kevin, Lourdes began, we can't just throw Amy out on the street. Okay, I said. I'll call one of Jose's sons. They can drop Amy off at the shelter. Lourdes squeezed my hand so hard I felt her nails. Kevin, you can't be serious. You can't leave someone like her in a place like that. They'd tear her apart. What do you expect me to do, Lourdes? Invite her into our bed? The three of us? You heard me. It wouldn't be Amy's first time with another woman. Or maybe that's your plan. I raised an eyebrow and shot her a mocking look. Lourdes let go of my hand and waved me off. You men are all the same. Put your fantasies away. More like a nightmare, I said. Losing you to Amy would have me sucking on a tailpipe. Whatever, Lourdes rolled her eyes. Amy can sleep on the couch tonight. We'll figure the rest out tomorrow. So, who's this Lourdes now? The Latin version of keep your friends close, but your enemies closer? I asked. I noticed how Lourdes had jabbed Amy earlier with the herpes remark. Lourdes lowered her gaze. Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. It was nasty kicking someone when they're already down. She sighed. Then I remembered. You WJD. It's just one night. You better count the silverware when you wake up, I muttered. Kevin, we don't have any silverware worth stealing, Lourdes replied. Doesn't it bother you that my ex-wife, with her reputation, is going to sleep in this house? I asked. Lourdes looked at me seriously for a moment. I know you, and more importantly, I trust you. Besides, if you leave me for plastic and trout lips, you were never mine to begin with. Lourdes, that's never going to happen. You're stuck with me, I said, kissing her. The next morning at 6 a.m., I was in the kitchen dressed in my maintenance jumpsuit. I wasn't flying that day, but had 3 houses to clean for Jose Maria's wife's company. Good morning, Kevin. Amy stood in the kitchen doorway, wrapped in a blanket. Her hair was tied back, and after a night on the couch, she looked worn out. I only hummed in response, turning my attention to my cup of coffee. Kevin, do you still have our boxes of cards? Amy asked, yawning. Those were your cards, Amy. No, I don't have your postcards anymore. Where are they? She pressed. I burned them, Amy. Roasted marshmallows over them, actually. Sort of like watching our past go up in flames. Oh, Amy said, looking unhappy. We sat in awkward silence for a while. Kevin, I just want to thank you for letting me stay the night, Amy finally said. Don't thank me, Amy. I wasn't thrilled about it. Thank Lourdes, I replied. Yes, Lourdes, Amy paused. You and her? I didn't answer. My relationship with Lords wasn't any of Amy's business. Kevin, Amy started, wiping saliva from her cracked lip. I don't know if I said this last night, but I'm sorry. Sorry for what, Amy? Cheating, leaving, taking all the money, ruining our marriage, lying, trying to take more after bankrupting me, coming back to mess up my life, or just missing all the toys Troy gave you? I stared at her, my voice cold. Be specific. I'm sorry I wanted something more than you did, Amy said softly. That sounds more like regret than an apology, I said, standing up and pouring the rest of my coffee into the sink. Tell me, Amy, if the house of cards hadn't fallen and you still had everything from the last 3 years, would you still be here? Kevin, I'm sorry I left you, I heard her say as I rinsed out my cup. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned around. Amy was standing close to me. I see someone's happy I stayed the night, she said with a hopeful smile. Don't flatter yourself, Amy, I said, brushing her off. Her smile faded, but she persisted. Kevin, I meant what I said last night. I'm yours, only yours. You can have me anytime, anywhere. She held out her hand, waiting for me to take it. I looked at her hand, feeling nothing but a dull ache. I've seen this show before, Amy. I'll pass. I turned away, heading for the door. Later that day, I realized my first major fight with Lords would be over Amy. I just wanted her out of my life to be someone else's problem. But Lords and Maria both lashed out at me. Jose Maria's husband wisely stayed out of sight, avoiding the crossfire. I wished I could have done the same. All their talk about Christian charity, forgiveness, and turning the other cheek sounded great in theory, but in practice, it sucked. 2 Catholic Latina women who believe God is on their side are an unstoppable force. They were firm in their belief that it was our duty to help those in need if we could. Cast your bread upon the waters and all that. They argued that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting what Amy had done. Lords and Maria pointed out that saints had forgiven those who wronged them. Even Jesus forgave Judas for the ultimate betrayal. I'm no saint, I replied, and any resemblance between me and Jesus is purely coincidental. Amy and Maria weren't discouraged. They insisted that since I had once loved Amy enough to marry her, her past loyalty to me, no matter how things ended, meant I should help her now. Good grief. I'd rather deal with a couple of rabid badgers than those 2. Lords dismissed Amy's recent attempt to seduce me, calling it post-traumatic stress from the sudden collapse of her world. She said it was Amy's way of trying to reconnect with a safer past. Lords was better than me. I couldn't buy into that excuse. Eventually, Maria found Amy a job cleaning houses, a far cry from her old glamorous life. The best place we could put Amy was in the mother-in-law apartment above my garage, which Lords arranged. Amy paid a small rent, which helped a little. Lords and Amy sometimes sat together on the porch and talked. I avoided Amy whenever possible. Who wants to relive a train wreck? Lords said Amy kept to herself, worked, went to church, and rarely left the apartment. I had some choice words for where I wanted to send Amy, but I kept them to myself, only muttering them under my breath a few times. In all honesty, Amy never tried to pull any stunts or hit on me again. After a few months, things finally calmed down. One evening, as I returned home from my flights, I saw Lords on the porch talking to an older woman with silver hair. She looked vaguely familiar. I extended my hand to introduce myself, but the woman hugged me tightly. Kevin, you remember Mrs. Talon? Lords said, gesturing toward her. And then it hit me. She was the wife of the man who had the heart attack on the golf course that day. The man we'd saved. Now I had a name and a face to match the memory. I let her go to get help while Jose and I performed CPR on her husband. Come on, Mrs. Talon exclaimed, pulling me into the house. He's been waiting for you all day, and he's as cranky as an old bear. Who's waiting for me? I asked, as we entered the dining room. Sitting at my table, surrounded by a pile of official-looking papers, was the man we'd rescued from the golf course. He had silver hair like his wife, was medium build and height, but exuded authority. A cane rested on the chair beside him. Damn, boy, get over here, the silver-haired man barked. I'm Boone Talon, and I've been waiting to meet you for a long time. He raised his cane and tapped the chair beside him. Sit your lucky ass down right here. Boone Talon was a man who expected things to go his way. Feeling slightly intimidated, I sat next to him. He slapped me on the back so hard I almost toppled out of my chair. Damn, boy, mind if I call you Kevin? He said without waiting for a response. I owe you my life. Boone Talon always pays his debts. He tossed a piece of paper into my lap. Listen up, Kevin. This is a personal services contract. I've got a Learjet 60, and you're going to be one of my personal pilots once you get your certification on it. The contract's for 15 years, with annual raises and bonuses. It renews every year. Whether I live or die, you're set. Just don't crash the damn plane. If you do, you're dead anyway, so no worries about getting paid. Doc says I can't fly anymore, but I need to stay airborne. The Lear stays here. I'll page you. Got it? I glanced at the paycheck amount on the contract, and my eyes nearly bulged out. It was ridiculous money, like winning the lottery. Mr. Talon, this is very generous, but what? Boone cut me off, his voice rough. You think my life's not worth a few bucks? Hell, the insurance company should pay you for saving my skin. You kept them from having to cough up my life insurance payout. I was speechless, but Boone wasn't done. Next, he said, sliding another stack of papers my way. Here's the deed to this house, fully paid for. Consider it a signing bonus. I can't have my pilots worrying about mortgages when they're flying me around. I need them focused. He paused, then added, and there's the title for a new F-250 Power Stroke pickup. You can pick it up at the dealer tomorrow. I don't want you standing at some damn bus stop, got it? Boone tapped his cane and said, that $1.4 million from Nine Rivers, forget it. My lawyers are handling it. You'll get an apology and a full membership by the end of the week. He then turned to Lords. We need to get you a nursing license. I've got tutors lined up, and you'll pass the test in 90 days. After that, you'll work at All Saints Hospital in pediatrics and cardiology. In a year, you'll be my flying nurse, and your student loans are fully paid. Lords, shocked, hugged Boone, who chuckled. Careful, you'll set off my pacemaker. I thanked Boone, but mentioned Jose. Boone grinned. Jose's covered. He's getting certified on the Lear 65 with a raise. I also paid off his kids' tuition, housing, and loans. Before leaving, Boone added, now you two need to get married. I don't like my employees living in sin. Lords and I did get married, though it became a big event at Nine Rivers, organized by Maria and the Latina women, with Boone footing the bill, including a cruise as a wedding gift. Amy was there too. She was doing better, but still needed a cane and had some memory problems. She rented the apartment above our garage, and though I was polite, I kept my distance. She started seeing someone from her church, and I wished them well. My new job brought together my two loves, Lords and flying. Lords sent postcards to Amy from every place we visited, and they'd sit on the porch discussing the details. That would soon change, though. Lords had to stop flying for a while because we were expecting a baby. Soon, I'd have 3 loves,